William Broad, you are charged with conspiring to defraud, contrary to common law, in that you, on or about the 2nd day of May, 1973, did conspire together with a person or persons unknown to defraud Ronald William Charles and others by manipulating the odds on the totalisator at the Oak Grange Racing Stadium on the 2nd day of May, 1973. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Members of the jury, we have before us a complicated case. Complicated, I submit, not by its considerations of honesty or dishonesty, not at all. These considerations, I suggest, will become clear to you as the facts are revealed. No, its complexity lies in the amount of expertise that was required to perpetrate this fraud, or coup, as it has been euphemistically called. Now, I'm afraid that you will have to master some of this expertise in order that you may judge of the fraudulency of the actions of the defendant and his associates. I would now like to read you a bare outline of the case, which I hope will help you to follow the witness's testimony. Now, as you've heard, the defendant is charged with manipulating the odds on the totalisator at Oak Grove Stadium, northwest London. And his manipulation, to judge from the results, was extremely successful. Now, it is the prosecution's case that he and persons unknown went to Oak Grove on the day in question, and on the 3:40 race, they prevented any other people at the stadium from betting on the totalisator forecasts, which is, I believe, the most common bet in dog racing. And that by preventing a consensus of wagering, they thereby ensured that the totalisator returns were not a reflection of the respective merits of the dogs competing, and in fact, they managed, by obstructing others from betting, to make what should have been the most fancied pair of dogs into rank outsiders, by promoting the genuine outsiders to favouritism by artificially backing them. Well, none of this would be of any concern to anyone except those deprived of the right to wager if it were not for one crucial fact, the fact upon which this case pivots. And that is that bookmakers have for a long time, and in good faith, accepted the returns of the totalisator as a reflection of an animal's worth and the general betting public's opinion, and have therefore been prepared to offer those odds and those dividends to the people using their services away from the courses. So, it is our submission that the defendant in this case, Mr. William Broad, used and abused this trust, and he did it in this way. He selected a forecast that was to him as near to a certainty as was possible. He wagered heavily on this forecast with a number of bookmakers, particularly with a Mr. Ronald Charles, and having wagered with these men who accepted his wager in good faith, he connived to distort the odds of the dogs that he backed by preventing others from backing their own selections. It is the submission of the prosecution in this case that this was a conspiracy and that it was dishonest. My Lord, for my first witness, I should like to call Mr. Ronald Charles.
Ronald Charles, please.
You are Mr. Ronald Charles of Nightingale Gardens, Fulchester?
That's correct.
And you are by profession a bookmaker?
I am, yes.
And you are the proprietor of Off-Course Investors, Fulchester?
That's correct.
Which makes you the largest bookmaker in the city.
I understand that is the case.
Biggest villain, maybe.
Yeah. And you have your premises in the centre of the city, do you?
Cannon Square, that's correct.
Now, do you know the defendant, Mr. William Broad?
I do.
In what capacity do you know him?
Well, as a customer, a punter.
A punter, my lord, and members of the jury, is someone who wagers on the...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deary.
My lord. Did you know Mr. Broad in any other capacity, Mr. Charles?
Well, I don't know what you want me to say.
Well, did you habitually meet him anywhere else but on your own premises?
Oh, yes, at the Brutus Sporting Club. I'd often use the Brutus in the course of business, you understand, and he was there drinking with, with people, you understand. I never associated with him there, of course.
Now, Mr. Charles, I have tried to outline the risks that a bookmaker takes in offering the odds produced by the totalisator in dog racing. Now, I wondered if you would elucidate this, please, for the benefit of the jury.
Yes, of course. Well, of course, the risks are vast. I mean, you can very often come, well, how shall I say, you can lose a lot of money.
Now, would you just give us the mechanics of what happened?
Oh, yes, by all means. Well, now then, let's see, it's how best to express it, you understand. You see, the thing is this. A punter goes to the races, an honest punter, that is, and he wants to back the bet which is normal at the races. Now, that is the forecast bet. Now, that is to say, the dogs which are going to come, or which he thinks are going to come, first and second. You see, it's not like backing the winner straightforward.
When you say first and second, Mr. Charles, is that in the correct order or merely the first two dogs past the post?
Oh, I beg your pardon, no, that was my mistake. No, indeed, I didn't make it quite clear. You are right when you say in the correct order.
I see, thank you. Go on, please.
Well, now then, the people, the punters, members of the general public at the track, they have their bets on the tote. Now then, when the race is over, the amount that the tote has taken is divided amongst those who have won. But you understand, this is only amongst those who are actually at the track. So you might say, well, what about the poor chap who can't get to the track? Now, that's where we come in, the bookmakers. You see, because we have no control over it. We can't affect how it's going to turn out. We can't say what it's going to pay. Well, fair enough. I mean, they've all had their chance at the racetrack, they've all backed the fancy, and so we take the attitude that whatever the tote pays out will be fair. And so we agree to pay that amount to our clients.
What about paying out on this one?
The gentleman at the back of the court will be quiet or he will be removed. Very well, Mr. Dealey.
Oh. Now, Mr. Charles, you've said that you know Mr. Broad as a customer, that is to say, as a punter. Now, what stake was normal for him? I mean, how big were his bets?
Oh, small fry, really. £5, £10, seldom more.
Then this is small fry.
Oh, I mean, considering the league that he pretend to be in.
I see. And did you always deal with him personally?
Oh, good Lord, no. But, I mean, I usually see his stakes at some stage.
Now, Mr. Charles, would you tell us what happened on the 2nd of May, please?
Well, Broad came into the office, into the main office, that is, shortly after we opened, to be about 9:45, and he asked to see me.
Did he always ask to see you?
Well, no, you see, you understand, this wasn't the first time. He liked to throw his weight about a bit, you see. He had an illusion of grandeur, you know.
I see.
Well, I went in the shop and I asked him what he wanted. And he said he wanted a monkey on the 4 and 6 dogs in the 340 at Oak Grove. Well, which is as much as to say he wanted £500 on that forecast.
£500?
£500.
What was your reaction?
Well, my first reaction was that he was joking. I asked him if he was going to pay in buttons or washers.
And what did he reply?
Well, to my amazement, and this is the first and only time he's ever surprised me, he took out a roll of notes and he started counting them out.
Well, he had this money in cash?
Yes. But you see, what you've got to understand is this. I mean, the forecast bet isn't usually a big bet. You see, the dividend is decided on a 10-penny stake. That's to say, if the bet pays, well, say £1, then for 10 pence you get £1. So for £500, well, I mean, it was utterly ridiculous.
Certainly for a man whose bet was normally in the region of £5 to £10.
Certainly.
Did you comment on it to him?
Well, I suppose I made some observation. I mean, one tries to be civil.
What sort of observation?
Well, just as to the size of the bet, I think I said something about him fancying the dogs very strongly.
And what did he reply?
Nothing.
He didn't answer?
No, he just looked at me.
I'd have told you to take a running jump with yourself.
Leave it out, Gander.
He's having a go at you, Billy. Watch
Leave
him.
it out, I said.
I will have silence in this court, and I will not remind you again.
Now, Mr. Charles, you've said that Mr. Broad put £500 on the 340 race. What happened?
Well, the forecast won. The bet came up. Oh, that's fair enough. I mean, the favourite was the winner. Green Name Beauty, the 4 dog. The second favourite came second. Dancer, the 6 dog. Well, I mean, the others, they weren't at the races. The forecast was such an obvious one.
Sorry, Mr. Charles, did the other dogs not appear?
Oh, the others did no chance.
You said they weren't at the races.
Oh, no, I beg your pardon, Your Honour. You see, one gets into such ways of habit, you understand. No, when I say they weren't at the races, I mean they were a long way behind. You see, they didn't stand a chance.
Yes, I see. Go on.
You were saying that the forecast was an obvious one, Mr.
Well, of
Charles.
course it was an obvious one. I mean, this favourite was well odds on. Oh, I don't know if you're acquainted with odds and so on, Your Honour.
Yes, I have been horse racing, though I must confess I've never been dog racing. However, I do understand the terms, but there may be some in the jury who would be grateful for an explanation.
Oh, by all means. Well, now then, first of all, you see, you've got evens. That's 50-50 sort of thing. Say, you back a pound, you win a pound. Now, that's even money. Now, then, when you're into odds-on, you win even less. Now, then, 3-to-1, that means you bet £3, you win £1, that sort of thing, you see. Well, so that if any animal is odds-on, then it's in with a fair chance. And I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, these were two hot favourites. The rest at 6s and 7s.
In fact, we have the result of this race, my lord, in the agreed bundle of documents, page 7. The 340 at Oak Grove. First trap 4, Green Ain Beauty. Second trap 6, Dancer. 2-to-1 on favourite and 5-2 second favourite. The other prices were 6-1, 7-1 and 100-8. That was from the Sporting Life of the following day, my lord. Now, Mr. Charles, what would you expect from your experiences of bookmaking a forecast of that kind to pay?
On a 10-penny stake?
Yes.
15 pence. If you were lucky, it might pay 17.
Not more?
Not more.
Not even 20 pence?
20 pence would be ridiculous.
So, what, in fact, did it pay?
£47.
Really? And what did this mean that Mr. Broad had won for his £500?
£223,250 after tax.
So you stood to lose £250,000.
Well, I mean, it was ridiculous. It was so obvious. I mean, you know, he shouldn't have been so ambitious. He's greedy.
What was your reaction?
Well, as I said, it was utterly fantastic. It was beyond the bounds of possibility or any such thing. I didn't believe it. I never did believe it. Well, it was quite funny, really. A couple of the lads, you know, the settlers, they thought they'd play a little bit of a joke on me, you see. And so they wrote up the bet, just as though it was all proper, you see. They wrote out, win, 223,000 and so on, you see. And they left it amongst a pile of slips for me to find. I had a bit of a good laugh about that.
Were there other people with the same bet, Mr. Charles? Completely innocent people?
My lord, I must
I
object.
think perhaps you'd better rephrase that question, Mr. Dealey, without any insinuation of guilt.
Certainly, my lord. Could you just tell us, Mr. Charles, did you have other bets on this same forecast?
Oh, just as you said. I mean, people who had nothing to do with this at all. I mean, quite pleased to win a few shillings, you know, quite honestly. And I can tell you here and now, I've spoken to a lot of these people, and they no more expect me to pay out this ridiculous sum. They just don't expect it.
So the people with 10 and 20 penny bets were winning how much?
£94.
And what's happening about these people?
Well, I mean, I can't possibly pay them out at this price, can I?
So what in fact is
It's
happening
been
then?
put in abeyance. The whole thing's been left in abeyance.
You've had to withhold payment of these bets.
We've had to, with no option.
Does this mean that...
Look, I'm sorry, but I must make this absolutely clear. No one is more sorry than I am to have had to do this. And I must tell you that bookmakers all over the country have been placed in the same position. No one has paid out on this bet. And I can't tell you how sorry we all are.
Have you ever had to withhold payment of a bet before?
Never. I wouldn't do such a thing. Now, look, I must make this absolutely clear to you. A bookmaker in my position can't cheat even if he wanted to. And I can tell you here and now, I love this game so much. See, I get on with all my customers. Well, they're my friends. Well, they are my friends. Well, I wouldn't cheat my mother and father. I wouldn't cheat my customers. I wouldn't want to.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.